Here's a subject I've been wanting to retouch on for a bit, and it's that corporate America is a scam, and also VC startups are a scam. And here's why both are places that you should try to get out of as quickly as possible. And I'm going to step by step expose why they're a scam and why you should avoid as quickly as possible getting caught up into the scam. So, first up here, what is the scam with corporate America? First, we have ultra capitalistic firing culture. And what this means is that there's at will employment. You can be terminated without cause at any time. You can have essentially be thrown out onto the streets if companies want, and there's nothing you can do about it because we have very little union protection. The performance metrics as well are constantly shifted. So it's a little bit of a game that's played where you could even have a good review, and then all of a sudden they just shift what the metric is, and then you're out on the streets because they want to justify cuts. So there is no reality. Effectively, it's whatever arbitrary rules and capricious rules the people that are running the company decide to do. And then we also have this concept of stack ranking systems. And the design of this is to make people have fear. So when you go into a corporation, you rat out the other employees, or you feel like you better work hard, or there's going to be a overlord that comes on top of you and calls you because you're not performing according to what this ultra capitalistic firing culture means. Doesn't mean that people shouldn't work hard and there's ways to work together and motivate people, but the current structure in corporate America is very toxic. Now let's talk about something that on the surface next sounds pretty good, which is high salary. So it sounds really exciting, right? Like, hey, I'm going to get $500,000 from Google or $500,000 from Microsoft. Look at this. This is amazing. Oh, great. We have to move to the Bay Area. The Bay Area is beautiful. We have redwoods. But now you have maybe a $10,000 a month mortgage. Well, where are you going to get a replacement for that salary that allows you to pay for that mortgage if you get fired? Well, the answer is you may not be able to get a replacement. So you better do what you're told, because now you're trapped in that particular ecosystem. You then also have to specialize, maybe become too specialized to justify that compensation. Maybe you become an expert on containerization only, and you don't know anything else but like some kind of exotic C++ containerization. Well, is that going to help you if you get fired from Google? Maybe it doesn't. Also, really the big lock-in here is that by overpaying people in a high cost area, you're able to essentially improve your monopoly power, because if you look at America, it really has done nothing in the last 40 years to prevent monopolies. You could say every trillion-dollar company is a monopoly. And so these monopolies can do anything they want. They overpay people in high-cost areas, and now they're trapped, and there's effectively golden handcuffs. Let's look at the third reason why corporate America is a scam here, which is the CEO compensation gap. If you look at the worker pay ratio, again, from about 1980 Reaganism to today, we see that there's 1,400 to maybe 5,000 times worker pay ratio to have this systemic wealth extraction from the middle class or even upper middle class to the CEO. What is the CEO doing to even deserve that kind of a pay? Well, what they're doing is that they're actually taking all of the money from the regular workers in the company, taking a piece of it, and then giving the rest to the board of directors or to the owners of the company. So effectively removing the concept of fair pay. If you look at stock options and RSUs, they also will mask the compensation disparity, right? Like you may look at the CEO, oh, well, they get paid $1 million, I get paid 500,000. Well, that's true. They get paid double what you get paid. But what if you count in all of the RSUs? Oh, wow, they're getting paid 5,000 or 10,000 times what I'm getting paid. Why? What are they doing? Is there any value that they're bringing that you couldn't bring or some random person in the company couldn't bring? I would argue no. And then if you look at executive bonuses, they're often tied to this elimination of human rights and to reducing labor power and to incentivize cost cutting and incentivizing layoffs. Not that there shouldn't be some way to improve the performance of a company and to make sure people are doing the right work, etc. But this idea of stripping human rights, throwing people on the streets and randomly creating fear to drive profit is a very toxic structure that CEOs in America have really been behind. Now, let's also look at ethical compromise as well. One of the real problems with some of the things that are happening in America is that people know that the corporations are doing things that are unethical, for example, taking illegal training data. But what are they going to say about it? They have ethical compromises they have to make. They have a high mortgage. They have to do what they're being told. There's technical debt as well that's accumulating. Hey, let's get this AI out there. Come on, quick, go, 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 go. Turns out that, again, it's with stolen intellectual property, or we know that there's some safety mechanisms that we should have put into place, or biased output is being rushed. And then if we look at security and privacy concerns, maybe you're shipping products that are leaking data. What do we care? We just care about the quarterly numbers. So ethical compromises are really the game. And if you look at a good example would be to look at poaching, for example. Could you go into Africa and essentially kill all the endangered animals and make a lot of money? Of course you could. But now what's the result? There's no endangered animals. There's no rhinos. There's no elephants. There's no tigers anymore. Likewise, that's kind of the mindset is let's strip mine society, and the ethical compromises are okay as long as we hit our quarterly numbers. And if you look at the next reason here, which is post-1980 worker exploitation, you can see that one big change has been that people used to have pensions, which are really nice because you get a fixed benefit and you're not playing a game with the stock market, but it's been replaced with 401ks. So then now potentially the person that's working for their whole life, they may have no money at the very end. If we look at health insurance as well, this is tied to employment. America is one of the only nations in the world that doesn't have a form of socialized medicine. We pay the most for medicine, and we also die earlier than most modern countries. And the number one cause of bankruptcy is, in fact, healthcare. So why is it that that's tied to employment? Because it creates leverage, because now the people that are working for a company will not go create a competing product. They won't leave because the corporation owns everything. They own the salary, they own the healthcare. Effectively, they even own where you live because they are the ones that are responsible for paying your mortgage. And if you look at real wages, they've been stagnant while the productivity has increased. And in fact, what we can see post-1980 Reaganism is that we have exponential increase in income inequality, and the income inequality is even at the greatest that it's ever been in the history of humanity, including things like the monarchy of Europe, the Napoleonic era. Next up here, we have zero autonomy. So one real problem with corporate America is on-call rotations. And you could get a great job at some tech company, but it turns out that you're constantly on call. So what's really happening? Do you have any personal time? Vacation could require multiple approval layers. So when people talk about how Europe needs to innovate, etc., really what they're talking about is we need to strip the human rights of Europeans so they can be stripped like they've been stripped for Americans. Europeans can get vacation for 2-3 months out of the year. Americans, if they're lucky, get a week of vacation. Really, a lot of this is about stripping autonomy. And also, the career path is going to be dictated by the organization. Hey, we want you to learn Python. You can't learn Rust because the middle manager told you to use Python. So you have no personal growth. You're locked in. Let's go to the next section here, which is skills extraction. We also see that knowledge transfer becomes a one-way street. And in fact, the documentation is going to strip the intellectual property from the worker. So they want to take everything you've got. You have to sign away your rights, but the corporation has all the control. Why can't you develop software on your free time or do something else? There's actually laws around this or rules so that the workers themselves can never really get away. It's a knowledge transfer that's one way. And you also have to train even your replacement workers before you get terminated, and they give you a little bit of a couple trinkets. We also have location lock-in. Remote work permissions are tied to performance metrics. The office culture is going to mandate artificial geographic constraints, so you can't live somewhere that's has more freedom, for example, or has better healthcare. And then they do a cost of living adjustment to punish this flexibility. So there's a lot of reasons why corporate America is a scam, and you should try to get out of it. Now let's talk about how VC funded startups. You may think, oh, okay, well, great, I should become a founder of a startup or work at a VC funded startup. Unfortunately, they're also scams. They're scams in a different way. But let's get into the first one, which is the philosophical misalignment. A lot of the VC ecosystem has libertarian and kind of anarchist mindset. I've heard many of the famous VCs in the Bay Area talk about how they'd like to replace government with applications. In fact, we're seeing this in 2025 as this kind of tech control of even governments, maybe first starting with the United States and then moving on to Europe. It's growth at all cost mentality. Who cares about sustainability? Again, if we look at maybe the South Island of New Zealand, for example, imagine if the VC people were able to get into there. What do you think the first thing they would do? They would cut down all the trees, kill all the endangered animals, and basically strip mine the South Island of New Zealand and make it a wasteland so they can make money really quick because they're moving fast and breaking things. This idea of growth at all cost has created many tragedies, including things like Airbnb and Uber. The idea here is you break the law to make the law. You do something very fast, so fast that the government can't really understand what's happening. And the end results, the externalities, are left for the public to clean up, almost like dropping some dynamite, blowing up a hole in the ground, taking the minerals out, and then leaving that hole for people to fall into and figure out a way to get out of. So the idea is the exit strategy is really what the priority is versus the product quality. So if they get an exit, it doesn't matter if Uber is more expensive than public transportation and maybe it will never be profitable. What's really important is they exited, right? So that's really the idea with philosophical misalignment. We also have asymmetric work requirements. The founders and employees have to work 100-hour weeks. I've worked at startups where, in fact, people have said, make me rich. And they would go through and they would leave at 40-hour work week or 32-hour work week. And all of the people that are working at the startup have to work 100-hour plus work weeks. Now, while the founders and the employees are working really, really hard, often it's more the employees than the founders necessarily, the VCs are diversified across 100 plus companies. So you're taking all the risk and they get all the benefit. The burnout is in fact considered a feature, right? Who cares if people burn out? We have 100 companies. We'll just discard that person and we'll get a new person into play. In fact, they want you to take extreme risk because the riskier you are, the more odds are that one of those 100 companies will actually work out. They don't care about you individually. You're just a commodity that can be burned out. We also have boss replacement. So if you think about, hey, I'm a founder, well, actually the board is going to control the founder's vision. The term sheet is going to have hidden control, and also preferred stock is going to favor the VC interest. So you may think, hey, look, I have 1% of a company. Yeah, 1% of the non-preferred stock. And so the VCs could liquidate all of the company and you get nothing. In fact, it happens all the time. People think they have a aspect of the company, a form of stock that makes it so that they'll get something, but they're getting robbed effectively because the VCs have a different stock structure. We also have wealth concentration. So the cap table waterfall will enrich the VCs first. The common stock is diluted through multiple rounds, and then employee options are underwater after down rounds. So at the best, maybe in some scenarios, even though it's a successful exit, the employees get nothing. They get maybe a retention bonus, a little trinket, but then all the people that are involved in basically doing no work get all of the benefit. So one way to classify this, if we go into the next section, would be false entrepreneurships. What this means is that the founder is really like a middle manager after Series A, and they're being told what to do from the VCs. The innovation is going to be constrained by investor expectations, and then the product roadmap is going to be dictated by the market size. Like, hey, let's go total addressable market, right? So it's a really a fake form of entrepreneurship. We also have unsustainable burn rates. So a lot of times the growth metrics will require constant fundraising, which is actually going to dilute all of the employees in the company. The talent acquisition as well is going to cost a lot of money. It's going to spike in tech hubs. And then the infrastructure is often over provisioned because we call this scale theater. So this really unsustainable burn rate is a common thread in the VC ecosystem. Finally, we have the single point of failure. One bad quarter could kill the funding. The market timing also dictates the survival. And also we have competitor funding rounds could also create a forced exit. So, this is very negative, but what would be the positive? So one positive outcome would be to have bootstrapped, right? You could do consulting and you could have what I call yellow money. You could build at the same time passive income streams where you're doing your own work that requires maybe more thoughtful things. And if you're able to maintain a low burn rate in a lower cost region, you have true really autonomy. So if really in a nutshell, the takeaway here is that when people talk about getting their dream job and working for a corporation or, founding a company, a lot of it is actually a scam. What you really care about is autonomy. Do you have autonomy? Can you wake up in the middle of the day and do whatever you want? Can you choose what to work on? Can you choose your own set of ethics? Or are those things being controlled by other people? Do you have health insurance? Do you have the ability to retire? All of these things are effectively being fed to Americans hand to mouth. And true freedom means that you choose what you want to work on. You choose where you want to live. You choose what to think. You choose what your own ethics are. So I think there's something to consider for people that are entering the workforce and looking at the current structure of America is, can I do better? And I would say, yes, you can. You can do better. And I would encourage people to think about ways that you can do better than what America is currently giving you. And also to look at this fake idea of quote unquote innovation in America and look at different ways that you should live your life in a more thoughtful way.